It's really an incredible pleasure to be chatting with you today, Sylvia. In your decade-spanning career, you've been able to view reefs all over the world. Was there ever a time when you started to notice that things were changing?
Well, I feel privileged to have been around before the concept of coral bleaching was articulated. I first took the plunge in 1953, and coral reefs around the world were pretty much intact as compared to where they are now. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until, I think, about 1980 in the Bahamas that I was just shocked at this. Looked like a big snowball. It was just one of those giant brain corals that I had known before, and then I saw it looking just dead white. It wasn't dead. The coral polyps were still alive, but about 3 years later, it was dead. Mm. It started to come back, but then, and the correlation was with warming. That was too much for the survival of the coral. Too warm for too long, and they basically cooked. I mean, it's terrible to think of it that way, but you know, most of the reef-building corals have a fairly narrow range that is appropriate for them, remarkably narrow. It is for most things that there's about a 5 degrees centigrade range where that's where they thrive. Change it a little bit hotter or cooler, and we're different because we can wear clothing or take it off, change the temperature inside so that it's different from the outside temperature. We harness a lot of energy in order to make that possible, but most creatures don't have that capacity. And so, yes, I've seen the change, and I remember the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time since I started my own lab here at USC. That's one of the questions that we're really interested in is, what drives differences in coral tolerance. Is it something that's genetic? Is it something environmental? And so we've set up a lot of experiments to try to answer those questions, especially using coral transplants in the field. But this summer, some of our experiments in Florida in particular were severely impacted by a record-breaking heat wave. Yeah. And I'm concerned, I'm sure you're concerned, but I'm wondering, is this the new normal? Was this just an anomaly? How concerned should we be for reefs in Florida, reefs in the Caribbean, reefs around the world, particularly?
And if we should be concerned about them, we should be concerned about ourselves too.
Right.
Because, there's a point beyond which all of our air conditioning fixes and this and that and the other thing will not be enough. Because when you think of all the 8 billion people living across the globe, not everybody can adjust the environment to suit themselves. And even that, there are limits to how much investment we can make to make that possible. And it's not just comfort for us. We need the planet to be thriving. And what we have done to the natural systems that maintain Earth as a habitable place for us and life as it now exists, well, we are the agents of change. But knowing that is cause for hope. Imagine if we did not know that corals are in trouble, and therefore we're in trouble. We didn't know that polar ice is melting, that the planet is changing, but we do know. And some of the causes of the decline relate not directly to warming, but the resilience of the corals has already been impacted because coral is not just coral. It's a community, and it's not just the organisms that live internally that make corals thrive. It's the whole system. It's like, imagine New York with only buildings. Or Los Angeles. You don't have taxis,
Right.
you don't have doctors, you don't have whatever it takes to make a thriving city. And of course, in a coral reef, the buildings are alive. And they provide not just shelter, but food. And what we have done to disrupt the network of life. I'm sure you know the study that was done with reefs in the Caribbean about how the extraction of parrotfish and swordfish and lobsters, because for us they seemed desirable to either eat or sell, and we just stripped them away. And as a consequence, the system is just in shambles. You don't have that give and take, those tight connections between nutrients, the habits of fish and all the other creatures that make a coral reef a coral reef.
Yeah, no, it's a great point and links into the next question I had for you, which is building on some of the things you spoke about this morning, like what do we do about the situation? Maybe be more sustainable, conserve existing biodiversity, restore ecosystems.
First thing
now
is,
there's an incredible
a break.
yes, no, there's an incredible amount of restoration happening, around the world, but the Caribbean's a hot spot, and particularly Florida. A lot of folks don't know, even NOAA-funded restoration efforts. It's one of the biggest reef restoration initiatives in the world is happening right now.
Killing.
There we go. Is it enough? Yeah.
The smartest thing, the most important thing is to protect what remains of those systems that are healthy. And I mean, really protect them. Right now, even, and I love the National Marine Sanctuary Program, it's a step in the right direction, but they not only still take fish, they encourage the taking of fish. They have sport fishing. They allow commercial fishing within National Marine Sanctuary areas. And if we're serious about addressing climate, serious about doing everything we can to reduce coral reef mortality, number one, stop the killing. Don't take the lobsters. Please leave the grouper, the sharks, the parrotfish, all of these elements that make a thriving system. Just respect them. Their value is much greater alive than on our plates. Most of what we take from reefs, with some exceptions, with people who really do rely for food, for sustenance, on elements of a reef system. But mostly, in the 21st century, you can't make that case anymore. And you think, where did the parrotfish go? They wind up in London. They wind up in New York. They wind up in cities far from their source. And people don't know that the reef really needs those parrotfish. The reef really needs those grouper more than you do. And sharks? Wow. Why does anybody even think about killing a shark when their role in healthy ecosystems and a healthy ocean overall, looking at the carbon cycle, looking at the nutrient cycles, looking at what makes Earth friendly, habitable for us, that we ought to just wake up and say, thank you, sharks. Thank you, parrotfish. You're not only helping the reef stay alive and be resilient in the face of temperature changes and other changes in chemistry, but they're just cool animals. Why would we want to kill them?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, but it's a controversial position to take, particularly from someone who used to lead NOAA. I know the challenges that some of the sanctuary managers face, right? I mean, the value of these systems is so tied to the services they provide, right? And so how do you... No, I know, but like to make that case, to say, we really need to protect it to a point that we can't enjoy some of the services that we were enjoying, right? To make that decision, because it's a lot of pushback,
meaning,
right? Like recreational services, as you know, in terms of
but
ecosystem
why is it
valuation.
why there are other ways to enjoy a forest than going in and cutting the trees. There are greater ways to enjoy a forest than killing all the songbirds and eagles and owls. I mean, divers, snorkelers, and even those who are just looking from the shore or from the deck of a ship, why would you want to tear it apart? What's the joy in going in and killing what makes the place thrive?
No, that's a brilliant
To me,
analogy.
I don't see that as a justified kind of recreation, especially when we know the consequences. Your moment of pleasure in killing somebody who lives on that reef means that you're degrading the system, and who pays? Everybody pays,
Right.
including the animal that's on the end of your hook.
Brilliant analogy, brilliant analogy. Yeah, I mean, certainly we don't allow hunting in like national forests, but yeah, surprising to the degree which we allow it in
If you're
marine
hungry, it's
reserves.
one thing.
Yeah, in marine reserves.
And
No,
if you-
that's really interesting. In terms of, you know, you've hinted already at some actions individuals can take. Are there other things we should be doing? You know, I've heard people say, "Oh, quick, like see the reefs before it's gone." But you know, is there a flip side advice to that? Well, should we be traveling to go see the reefs if that's emissions? You know, are there other things we can do to promote conservation?
I think the best way to address what do I do about climate, first of all, ask yourself, who am I? You know, look in the mirror. When kids ask what I say, what have you got? What have you got? Who are you? Do you have a way with numbers? Or you have a way with making pictures, photography, or artistic trend? Do you sing? Do you play an instrument? What have you got? What makes you you? I can't tell you what you can do because I don't know you. You know you. You can see what the problems are. Figure out something within that great array of solutions, how you can step up and make people aware of the problems, or maybe you want to align with scientists who are doing the research, dive in, make observations, measurements that together you get a better understanding of what changes are taking place. I think it's really exciting to be a 21st century kid or grown up or anybody, just to understand that what we do now really matters, really matters. The planet was far more resilient when I was a child than it is now, because we've done so much damage, not knowing that it would matter. You think of not just the trees, the land that's been converted to human purposes. About half of the land has been converted just for agriculture. And when you think back, you know, how did Earth come to be habitable for us? We could go back 1 billion years ago. There's some microbial life, quite a lot actually. The little guys in the ocean, the photosynthetic microbes, were churning out oxygen, capturing carbon. I mean, Earth was a busy place even before there were fish, even before there were corals. But it wouldn't be hospitable for them or for us. Mm-hmm. It's only been within the last 500 million years or so, in a planet that's at least 4 billion years old, that Earth has been habitable for big creatures, and we've only been around for maybe 1 million years. And you think about fish, 300 or so million years, mm-hmm. give or take a few. What does 1 million years mean to you in your life? Mm-hmm. I mean, I almost can't wrap your mind around it. Or corals have a history going back, turns out, about 400 mm-hmm, million mm-hmm. years. And ice ages have come and gone. Right. It's not the same species today that were there 400 million years ago, but there are some sharks that are pretty much the same as they were hundreds of millions of years ago. They managed to maintain through these ups and downs, the continuity of the genetic material. And sometimes they get reinvented through the changes that are taking place. Some, they're winners and losers, but your question about what do we do now with the greatest era of loss short of having catastrophic changes like when whatever it is that caused the demise of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, it probably knocked off a great many of the corals too. But there were survivors that came through. And we are so fortunate to live in such a robust, diverse planet, even now, even given what you've witnessed, this decline. I mean, at least half the coral reefs that I understand were around when I first began looking at the ocean, exploring, and it's more than half in the Caribbean and Florida. What are the numbers that you've witnessed?
Oh gosh, I mean, cover for some of the most iconic coral species, the big branching acroporids, it's down to
the elkhorn,
1% or
staghorn.
less. You know? And I mean, we know in Florida literally how many individuals are left of the elkhorn coral. Like we have censused them all, right? Which is just, if you think of what those reefs used to look like, like Carysford, with just the fields of Acropora palmata, and it's gotten to the point that we know the last few individuals and are trying to bring them into captivity because we're sincerely worried about losing them completely.
Protect the source.
Yeah.
Seeds from trees.
Yeah. No, it is. Like we're at that point. And so it's, it can be really, really emotional for us working on it, and also really, it makes hope less. But I think that's something that I really admire and I'm inspired by with the work that you do with your nonprofit, Mission Blue, where you're really focused on a message of hope and positivity. Yeah, and so, going forward, what do you see as the agenda in the next 10 years?
Well, like you, I've had a chance to spend hours and hours and hours underwater, and most people don't get to do that. And I see reasons for optimism because although places in Florida and the Caribbean and elsewhere in the world, Great Barrier Reef and Indian Ocean, where it looks like it's just a wipeout, and where there used to be thriving forests, they're just rubble. And then you see over here somebody's not gone. Over here, a little mound. There are resilience within a diverse community. There's somebody who's going to be able to take the heat more than most of their neighbors. It's true with most species where you have a species, or of a kind, and a disease comes through and almost everybody dies, but somebody lives. Because of the variations on the theme, there are no two of anything alike. Even coral polyps, they're all individuals, but when you think, is this little guy here different from this one? They look alike, but when you get right down to it, it's hard to find even within microbes complete, absolute, right down to the last molecule, that they're identical. You can get pretty close, even, we think about twins or triplets or clones or whatever, but it's one of the miracles of life. The ingredients are all basically stardust, this periodic table. Here are all the elements that make up the universe. And living things are rich in carbon, in hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, a handful of special elements, and probably the other ones too, in such small amounts that we haven't put them on the balance sheet, but that they're reconfigured so that you and I have the same basic chemistry, but we're different. And every cat, every dog, every fish, and maybe every coral polyp, who knows? But it's that variability that enables resilience in the face of change. So it's like a treasure hunt when you go to a reef that has been devastated and you look around. Okay, where are you? There's somebody, there's one little fish still, it's like the story of the Lorax. It's one seed. Maybe the trees can come back. But sometimes there are no seeds left. Sometimes species go extinct. In the Caribbean, on my watch, the last monk seal disappeared because of us. Seals lounging on Miami Beach, seals in the Gulf of Mexico, as far north as Galveston. When I was a child, there were still some remaining. And I didn't even know they existed because by then there were so few. But if you read about Ponce de Leon or some of the early explorers, they ate the seals. They were so friendly, you could easily catch them and kill them, like so many of the creatures that are innocent of us as predators. And so they, like those spear fishermen that spear Goliath groupers and other, they practically jump right on the spear. They're so friendly. They come right up to you, and you reward their curiosity by killing them. I mean, it's just, to me, an emptiness of spirit, of compassion, of even thinking about, why wouldn't we be asking who you are instead of, I wonder how you taste. Or it's fun to watch you writhe on the end of a hook. Anyway, there are certain attitudinal changes that can make all the difference if we look at life as a miracle instead of, hey, I'm the big boss of the world. I think it doesn't matter what I do to nature because I'm different. We're not. We're all part of the same chemistry of life. And when we kill the reefs, kill the birds, kill the trees, we're taking away from the resilience of Earth. And when our numbers were kind of small, and we had to kind of eat our neighbors for our existence, wild things, we kind of could get away with it, even though we were able, over the last 10,000 years, to exterminate quite a few of the biggest kinds of creatures that were good to eat, easy to catch. But today we have to rethink the whole system. And today we can. I mean, we didn't know, even 100 years ago, what 10-year-olds of today know what Earth looks like from space. They know we've got a climate issue. Don't get depressed. Get busy. Get on it. Knowing how the world functions and what we're doing that disrupts the system, we can fix this. We have to hurry. That's what you're doing.
Trying my hardest, doing what I'm best suited for.
That's right.
We'll say.
What do you got?
Giving
You got
it what
science.
I got. That's right.
You've got curiosity. You've got the will to just try to figure things out. And it works. So glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Earle. It's been an incredible pleasure having this opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.